Well, hello, internets. I've got a big stack of footwear to talk about today, including one unopened box. I'm Charlie Hudson, and you are watching Reanderthal. Okay, quick overview. I loved being barefoot as a kid, right? Everybody does. It just feels great. I always told people I wanted shoes that were more like socks. So when I first heard about the 5 fingers, I pounced and I got a pair. They seemed really cool, and I almost never wear them. If I'm at home, I'm just going to go barefoot, and if I'm out and about, I'm going to wear something that looks more like a shoe and less like an aqua sock. So I've got some other barefoot shoes that I wear. They're not here because today I'm talking about boots. So the venerable bean boot. This is my old pair of bean boots. I had them for many years. I think I got them when I was 12 or 13. Loved them. These aren't winter boots, but when it's raining in November, you want to keep your feet dry. But these guys have the big heels, which I was not a fan of. And so for a canoe trip a few years ago, I searched and searched and searched for some waterproof barefoot shoes. Given how common barefoot shoes were even at that time, I thought barefoot boots would be a pretty easy thing to find. It seems to me like a really obvious niche to fill. Something that's light and flexible and minimalist, but can keep your feet dry. Well, it took a lot of searching, and then I settled on these Feelmax Kuuva 2s. These weren't advertised as waterproof, but I gave them a good solid treatment with some wax, and they really held up well. I love the flexible sole. You can really feel the ground in these things. And they held up really well in all sorts of conditions for about 18 months. And then last February, right when the slush was starting to cover the roads, and I really wanted something that could keep my feet dry, this material they have on the side started cracking, and they basically became useless for my purposes. That stuck me in these chore muck boots that I have with the steel toes. These keep your feet dry. They're about as far as you can get from barefoot, and it's nothing that you want to go hiking in. So for winter, when it's really cold and not particularly wet, these perform really well, these mucklucks, right? But I'm not going to wear them. They're not designed for immersion. They're not designed for a rainy day in November or a slushy day in March. So I had to find something else. So I was back to the drawing board. I searched and I searched and I searched. Again, I really had trouble finding anything that was barefoot and waterproof. Eventually, I settled on these boots. They're made by Tactical Research, and they're not, I hesitate to call them barefoot. They are minimalist. They have like a 2mm drop or something. It's very small. They're pretty armored though. But it was nice to have something better than those muck boots, right, for a wet day. Though they're not designed for it. I actually had to do some work here. You'll see they actually have 2 holes here, I think to drain out water. These are like jungle boots or something. So I actually plugged those holes up and I treated them with wax again. The leather I was pretty confident about. The nylon was kind of a stretch, but I treated the nylon with wax as well. That seemed to work okay. So these were my late fall and spring boots, and I was pretty happy with them. They look a little bit less dorky than these old Feelmax boots. But when I put these on, sometime in November or December, just to do some chores outside, I was reminded how much of the ground I could feel. This is night and day. These might be minimalist. These are barefoot, right? But these were going to keep my feet dryish, and these no longer could. So that was the situation I was in. Then I heard back from Feelmax. I guess because I had done some reviews that got some play and they were pretty thorough, they got in touch and said, would I be interested to get a pair of their new Kuuva 3 boots at a discount? And yes, of course, I was interested. So now here we have this box that I'm going to open, and we'll check that out. Look at that. So first off, these things look like actual hiking boots on top. Do we have? Yes, we do. They might be a little less flexible, hard to tell, but they seem, they certainly look much more like regular hiking boots than the old Kuuvas. Let's try them on. Okay, I have to admit I'm somewhat confused by this lacing system. So they do look a little bit more like hiking boots, but they do manage to just look a little bit dorky still. But again, that's not my biggest concern. The other thing that I noticed right off the bat with these is that they're supposed to have some sort of waterproof membrane in them, but notice here that the tongue has a cut here, so they're really only going to be waterproof up to your sort of mid-ankle. So these are really aimed at the hiking boot market, I think. That's obvious from the styling to me, but also from this here. Whereas, your bean boots can be waterproofed all the way up, up to here. And the previous Kuuvas were waterproofed up to here, which I was a little disappointed by, but that was, that's still a pretty good step in a puddle there. This, you're going to be avoiding those puddles. You're not going to step in something that you're not sure how deep it is. So in a canoe situation, I may think about using these still, even though I'm not sure about how waterproof the treated nylon is. Because, these are obviously not waterproof at all beyond here. But certainly for hiking and just for general sort of wet, rainy days, these seem like a good option. And, for hiking especially, put on a pair of gaiters, and that's going to keep the rain out. So you're all set there. But again, these are aimed, I think, pretty squarely at the hiking market, and not perhaps the canoe market. But they do seem like a solid pair of boots, and they're supposedly going to hold up better because this vinyl material that failed on the previous Kuuvas has been removed, and they sounded pretty confident that these would wear better. So I will keep you posted on how these work out for me. But for now, I think I'm pretty excited about them. Well, I haven't gotten around to posting my review yet, but I have been wearing the boots. So I thought I would give you a few more early impressions. One of the first times I took these boots out, I spent the afternoon tromping around in slush. We have a lot of snow accumulated here in Maine, and now it's melting. And this was pretty much exactly the scenario that I wanted to get some barefoot boots for. Cold and wet. And I tromped around in the slush all afternoon, and these guys served me really well. So right off the bat, I have to say I'm happy with that. And they certainly do look a little bit less dorky, a little bit more like standard boots than these, the Kuuva 2s. These, I don't know what you call these, eyelet things for the laces are much sturdier on these Kuuva 3s than they were on the Kuuva 2s. This is probably going to go out of focus, but you can see a bunch of these got bent on my Kuuva 2s, and I was always sort of catching them on the laces, catching them on each other, catching them on things that I was walking by. I think these are going to hold up better. But I do have one complaint about the eyelets here, and it's that it's really hard to adjust the laces. The laces don't really move in those eyelets. There's a ton of friction. So unless you want to take 5 minutes lacing up each boot, you're pretty much stuck with the tension that's on there. That being said, these aren't like ice skates, hockey skates. They're not something I really want to crank down every time. So it's okay that they're a little bit loose. And then my other nitpicky thing is the insoles. So I was on a long drive wearing these boots, and I was just sort of getting bored, and the thought occurred to me that, did I get the right size boots? And so I was sort of feeling around in the boot with my toes, scrunching my feet around. And I felt the insole. What I found out later was the insole sort of, my feet had grabbed it and sort of pulled it down. I think the issue is with a boot that's as flexible as this, it's hard to have the insole stay in place. But the problem is once it gets sort of out of place, it's this really annoying, they're not super thick insoles, but they're thick enough to be like just kind of annoying to feel that, scrunch or whatever all the time. I think I probably would not have caused the problem if I hadn't been actively scrunching my feet around. When I went to investigate, I found out that, in fact, the Kuuva 2s also had an insole, and I never realized it. It never even occurred to me. Now, looking at these two insoles, I can confirm my suspicion. When I first started wearing these guys around, I thought, this is great. They feel super flexible. I can feel much more of the ground than I can in these tactical research boots. But they felt a little bit more padded than the Kuuva 2s. And looking at the insole, I can confirm that that is most definitely the case. These are much thinner insoles in the Kuuva 2s. And so then a few times I took the insoles out and went around without them. That seemed fine. But I do see there's some odor control. They say something about odor control on the bottom here. And I also think it's probably going to make them more durable to not wear the inside of the boot, feel the stitching and all of that. So I'm probably going to put these insoles back in and leave them in. And maybe try to scrunch my feet a little bit less. So I just walked out to the end of the driveway to get the mail. It's about 1/4 mile. And I had put the insoles back into the boots, the Kuuva 3s. And by the time I reached the mailbox, I could feel the end of the insole reaching about the first joint in my left boot. The right boot has always been fine. But in the left boot, it reached the first joint of my toes. And by the time I got back to the house, the insole was at the ball of my foot. So I'm going to take these off. We'll see what it looks like in there. So you can see the insole riding up halfway up my ankle here. So I think the verdict is I'm not going to take these on a hike and rearrange the insole every 10 minutes. So I think I'm going to take them out for good. There are a few stitches exposed here. I hope I don't wear them down. I hope I don't cause any undue wear or tear in these. But no, I can't leave these in here. I suppose the other option would be to get some sort of fabric adhesive. But for now, I think I'm just going to go without. That's all for now. Hopefully I will get this uploaded sometime soon.